Yes, Amy. Great. Thanks. All right, with that, we are set for a formal kickoff. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second California Environmental Literacy Initiative District Innovation Hub webinar. Today's topic is about shared leadership for green schools and thinking about systems approaches to environmental literacy planning. We're really thrilled to have you join us today. Tim, if I could get the next slide.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because it's not responding to anything. Hello, everybody. We're going to make this work today. Let me try that again. Okay.
While Tim pulls that up, my name is Nate Ivey. I'm one of the co-chairs of the District Innovation Hub. I'm also an instructional coach in Fremont Unified School District. We do have a pretty ambitious agenda for us today. We're going to kick off in a few moments with some introductions. Then we'll get into the heart of the agenda, which will be a presentation about shared leadership and how to do it. If you're on the district side, how to distribute that leadership within your district. And if you're on the community partner side, how to engage with your school districts and navigate that system. Next slide, Tim.
Got it.
There we go. Throughout the presentation, you'll have an opportunity to take some notes or contribute ideas in the chat. But at the end of the presentation space, there'll be some time for discussion and Q&A. Close to 5 o'clock, we'll call a formal end to the session. We'll ask for your feedback on the session, share some information about upcoming webinars. But in the 5:05 to 5:30 time slot, we'll have an opportunity for extended conversation, for breakout rooms, for more Q&A with Tim. But we do want to keep the webinar portion close to about an hour. Next slide.
Hold on. There we go.
Great. So one of the goals of the District Innovation Hub is to help build connections in a community of district practitioners and partners around the state. We'd like to, through this webinar, help you build connections, and we'd like to give an opportunity for you to meet some people and just check in and learn a little bit about what's going on around the state. So next slide. One way we'd like to have you do that, Amy's going to put in the chat a link to a Padlet. When you get to the Padlet, you'll see down in the bottom right-hand corner a plus button. If this is your first time joining us, click that plus button and add a marker to the map to let us know where you're from and maybe tell us a little bit about your work. So one way collectively we'd like to build this community is just to see who from where is participating around the state of California and maybe beyond. Next slide. But the heart of making these connections is the opportunity to meet with and talk with someone else. If you're in a position to do so, it's really nice to have your camera on so you can see some face-to-face with a couple of other people in a breakout room. I understand that might not be possible in all contexts. And I also understand, it's possible some of you might be driving. So please don't be fiddling with phone settings and buttons and trying to change interaction unless it's safe to do so. But in a moment, Amy's going to put us into breakout rooms, and we'd like to give you just a couple of minutes with 2 or 3 other people to make a connection. So share your name, your organization, your role. Tell the people in the room where you're located, so kind of the same information that you're putting on the Padlet right now. And then the question we'd like you to talk about is, how might you inspire others to help in sustainability planning and implementation? So what is your role in helping others? So back to the prior slide, Tim, if you don't mind. So these will be our questions in the breakout room. We'll have a quick 5-minute opportunity to connect and meet someone else from around the state who is doing similar work to you. So Amy has opened the breakout rooms. Please click that join button and meet a couple of new friends.
Okay.
And make that connection. So again, welcome back from the breakout rooms. A little bit about CAELI. CAELI is the California Environmental Literacy Initiative, and its goal is to increase access to impactful environment-based learning for all of California's TK to 12 students. And one of the ways that CAELI does that is through a collection of innovation hubs, which are practitioners from around the state working in teams to help advance this goal in different domains. So there's a community-based partner hub, a county office hub. This webinar is sponsored by the District Office Hub. We view districts as a really important unit of change for creating access for students. There's a hub focused on equity, another focused on green career education, policy and advocacy, and professional learning. Next slide. In the District Innovation Hub, we have a number of goals. Our top goal is to build this community of district practitioners and partners, to build these relationships and connections, to make the work not so lonely, to make it so we don't have to walk the path alone. We aim to create and curate and share environmental literacy and sustainability resources. We want to help build the capacity for district planning so that districts can be systemic and comprehensive about this. We want to share leading edge exemplars to kind of shine a beacon or a pathway that others might follow. And then try to figure out the best ways to support districts. So this webinar series is designed to advance many of these goals. And today's session with Tim Baird, that we'll hear from in a few moments, really hits on all of these. You'll hear from a leading edge exemplar district that will share information about planning and support strategies and plenty of resources as we build this community. Next slide. So again, my district, Fremont Unified School District, we have many pockets of excellence, but we're really struggling and still trying to develop a systemic approach that we can name and talk about how this impacts and works at all schools. Luckily, there are a number of really good examples of systemic thinking, including the Green Ribbon Schools program, which thinks about the environmental impact and costs of a campus, the health and well-being and environmental just health of a space, and then the environmental learning. But there are other examples as well. The San Mateo County Office of Education's 4 Cs model and the Green Schools National Network, which we'll hear about a little bit more in today's presentation. Next slide. So again, throughout today's webinar, we do encourage you to take notes on a Jamboard. This is an example of a Jamboard from our last webinar. Amy has just put a link in the chat, so please do go ahead and open that up, and you'll see a way of just kind of organizing some of your notes and thinking around some of the different themes we hope to touch on today. So to help us really dive into and get familiar with these themes, I'd like to introduce Tim Baird, who's our featured speaker today. Tim is the co-chair of the District Innovation Hub with me, so I'm very appreciative for his leadership and partnership here. But Tim is also a retired superintendent from Encinitas School District, which during his leadership became the 2014 U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon School District. Tim is also a board member for the Green Schools National Network, providing leadership and support and training for districts around the country that are trying to figure out how to do this work. So we're really lucky and thrilled to have Tim's presentation today. Tim will share a huge wealth of information with a couple of opportunities for breakouts, but then again, an extended opportunity after the 5 o'clock hour if you'd like to stick around and have some more conversation. So Tim, take it away.
All right, and if you're not already muted, if you could all mute, please, that would be helpful. I'm going to jump right in. We're going to do a lot of things today. I have too much information to share, so we're going to scoot through some of this. One of our main things is we're going to look at how systems work in a school district and what system thinking looks like in terms of shared leadership. I'm going to try to share some insight on how school leaders think, what leads them to make the decisions, and what leads them to share leadership. And then we're going to look at strategies for how you might share leadership with school leaders, or if you are a school leader, some of the things you go through as you share leadership, and show some examples of that. So hopefully it'll have some meaning for you. As Nate mentioned, I am the previous superintendent from the Encinitas Union School District, and a lot of the examples, photos, and videos I'll share today come from Encinitas. These are our 4 pillars. These are things that everything the district does relates around these big ideas or big goals. This is another example of how the district sort of communicates what we're all about. This is our environmental stewardship tree, and each one of those branches is a program in our environmental stewardship program. And so you can see how this really helps communicate to our public and staff what are the important things we're working on within the district. So we have 9 schools. I'm not going to go through all of these, but each of the schools does have a unique sort of who they are and what they're all about and what they focus on and build their curriculum around. These are chosen by the schools themselves. So this is just a lead into what shared leadership looks like in Encinitas. And each of these schools, sometimes their focus changes, and that's okay too. As mentioned, I also work with the Green Schools National Network. We work with lots of different districts. I'm not going to give you the commercial, but I am going to tell you that we are going to use a lot of things from our green print, which is really something that all of you can access from our website. But these are some big ideas that come from the green print. So the first big idea is that we're all about healthy, equitable, and sustainable schools and school districts. So this is what we're trying to accomplish, and we do it through our 4 impact systems. So we look at leadership, curriculum instruction, facilities and operations, and culture and climate. These are the ways that we make these changes to a school culture, to a district culture, and we'll look at some examples of what that looks like. I'm going to talk a lot about what leaders do and think about so that you get some insights into that, because I think that sometimes we always like, well, why did they do that? How come the superintendent did this or did that? And this is also taken from the green print. So I'm going to go through each of these things, some in more detail than others, but we're going to talk about how successful leaders share leadership. We're going to talk about how you vision, plan, and implement change and what shared leadership looks like there. We're going to talk about building partnerships and then building and promoting that culture. And finally, communicating what you're all about. Oftentimes districts that do a really good job in all these other things forget to tell people what they're doing. So I'll share some examples of how Encinitas does that and maybe a couple from a few other districts. So one of the guiding principles with the Green Schools, and I believe in this strongly as well, that we're all leaders and learners in this work. It's not like there's one leader and everybody else is following. And we're also all learning through this process, and that includes the superintendent. It's not just the students who are learners in this process, and that drives the way we think about shared leadership. In this next section on shared leadership, I want to really talk about what school leaders think about, why they make decisions the way they do, what some of those overarching goals are or things that drive those goals, and then how they establish that vision, that plan, how they look at these bigger ideas like sustainability, and then who are these groups and different types of people that share leadership within a school district, and how you might be one of them, either from an internal position as a staff member or from a partner from the outside, like a nonprofit trying to work with a school district. So let's jump into that. I use this slide for lots of different things. So I'm going to talk about it today as these are things we think about as school superintendents and school leaders are establishing goals within a district.
Tim,
So,
I'm going to stop you for 1 second because
Yeah.
your slides are beautiful, but they are not showing up beautiful on here. So I don't know. They look blurry. Is that anyone else? I know it's at least one other person in the chat. Do the slides look normal to anyone?
No, thank you. Okay, well, let's get out of screen sharing and come back in. Thank you for stopping me. Okay, so let me come out.
If it doesn't work for you to share them, maybe Nate or I can, but
Yeah.
try
Okay.
with you.
Sorry. Okay, so let's do this. Let's try screen sharing again. Okay, is it still bad?
That looks better to me. How about you guys?
Yeah, it's good now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you for stopping me. All right. So these are things that we always think about, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see that things like student engagement and learning is important to a school leader. Healthy schools, obviously during the pandemic, this rose to the top. So all of these different things are part of what we think about as we set goals. And they're not always in the same order, as you can appreciate. So we use those things to set goals to establish a culture. Culture reflects the values and beliefs of the school community. Culture drives the work, and the things we do within that culture, the practices that we have, are climate which drive that culture. So this is all about creating a culture, and in our case, to support sustainability and environmental literacy. So if these are all great things and we all love them and everybody agrees they're perfect, how come school leaders aren't adopting your program? How come they're not buying your product? How come they won't listen to your idea? And I hear this every time. It's like, I can't get anybody to listen to me. The school leader won't talk to me. And I have all these things. I have something that solves all these things. So let me put this in another perspective so you can understand maybe why that's so hard. And here's a personal analogy. We all want to be healthier, right? So we all want to live a healthier lifestyle. And all of those same reasons may apply to that issue. We want to be healthier. We want to keep our brains active. Might want to save some money by not, having to spend money on doctors and various things. We want to have a good body image. All of these are great things. Or we may have family genetics that drive us in terms of, maybe we have heart condition in our family or something. So we all want to be healthier, right? And that looks this way within culture and climate. So we want to be healthier. So how we eat, exercise, use our time, that's our culture. And what we do about that, going for a walk every night, or maybe you have dessert every night. These are ways that that climate gets adjusted that reflects that culture. So we want to be healthier. Then how come we don't adopt every new diet book? We don't try every new exercise practice. We don't read, every new wellness book. How come we don't do all those things all the time? And I just want us to think about that from a personal thing, and that will sort of give you some insight in why school leaders don't adopt your program. So you can put some of this in the chat. I'm going to jump through this fairly quickly, but let's think about access. So you can't get to the school superintendent, but why can't you get me to read your diet book? What are some of the things that get in the way of that? And you can just put this in the chat, and I'll share some quickly to sort of catch up because we've gotten a little bit behind. And think about that. And I'll wait for just a couple of things to happen in the chat. There are lots of good reasons. And I can see things happening. So yeah, I'm seeing bandwidth, information overload. Sometimes they don't know that there's a problem. Sometimes they don't think changes are necessary. Don't know if your program works. Maybe it's controversial. Not a good use of resources. So there's lots of reasons why a leader may not do it. Same thing with action. Even if they did read your book, even if you did meet with them, they may not adopt your program. Are there any new reasons why they may not beyond access? So you got access to me, you talked to me, but I didn't bring you into my school district. Are there some reasons that may happen? Well, and again, some of the same things are at play, but also maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I've got resources going somewhere else. Maybe I have higher priorities. So these are all reasons why we can't get to the superintendent, or why we can't get the superintendent to help us. So what do we do about that? Well, if it's impossible to get to the leader, how do you get past that? I'm going to talk about 3 different things you need to think about trying to get to the superintendent or the decision makers in a school district. One is relationships. And this is just obvious, but it's sometimes people need to hear this. It's that we're going to work with people we know. So if you have a relationship with that school district, with those decision makers, that makes it a lot easier, one, to get access, but also to have your program looked at seriously. And what if you don't have a relationship? Well, through networks like this, through local networks within your community, like Rotary, there's different ways you can get to meet school people and work with them, but relationships matter. That's the number one way, is that the person within the district, or somebody who knows them. Relationships are the way to do it. Second is your reputation. I'm going to talk to somebody who's worked with you. I know that when I'm looking to implement something, I do my homework. Most superintendents do. So the way you might want to think about this is work locally with people within areas that you already have contacts. So if you're working with a district, like my district, you might want to look at districts near mine, because those are the people I talk to. We have a local company here that does environmental sustainability support. They are working with every district that touches my district because they've talked to me about them, and they're great. They're also working now in South County. So your reputation is important, and that's a great way to, once you've gotten access, we're going to find out about your reputation. The last is reciprocity. And I bring this up because sometimes people say, hey, I've got this coloring contest, Tim, or I've got a poster contest, or we've got a writing contest, or we have prizes for kids. That may be great for you. That's not something that meets any of my goals. Let me give you a different approach to that. I always say no to those, by the way, and most superintendents that I know don't want to waste time, which is a more valuable resource than money. What I like, though, is when somebody knows what I'm working on. So I had the local botanic garden, which is near one of our sites where we do a lot of research and design work, and we had students working on entrepreneurial skills. And he came to me and said, Tim, I know you're working on entrepreneurial skills with your kids. I would love for your kids to help the Botanic Garden with our public relations program. Could they design a public relations campaign that we could work together on, and that would help your students as well as it would help me? So I look for those win-wins. That was a yes. I look for those win-wins and find that way that you can make it work for the district. Know what they're working on, know what they're talking about, know what's important to them, and that's where you start. So relationships, reputation, and reciprocity. Those are three important things. We're gonna take a second for you to talk about that in a breakout room, and think about this in terms of, what does that mean right now? Many of you are either you're inside the district, but you still can't get the ear of the superintendent or executive cabinet, or you're coming from a partner who's trying to work with a district and you can't get either heard, or even if you've been heard, you can't get your program adopted. So I'd love to have you just have a few minutes of conversation around, what does it look like if you start thinking about, how do I build those relationships? How do I work that reputation? Or start thinking about reciprocity in terms of getting that connection and being able to share some leadership within the district. So Amy, can you put people in breakout groups?
Yep, the rooms are open. Feel free and join. Questions are in the chat.
All right, welcome back, everyone.
Uh-oh, who's that?
That's Tom Brady.
I'm joking.
Well, I did this slide yesterday. I assumed he would be unretired by now and we would be welcoming him back, but he's proven me wrong. Anyway, hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about some of that in the 5 o'clock hour, but I'm going to jump on with the presentation. And let's move on to setting a vision and helping to plan and implement change. Where do leaders go to share resources here? So there's lots of things that leaders do in this area. And I'm going to jump to a strategy that I've been using lately, working with schools and school districts. And this is looking at the use of design teams. So frequently, within the Green Schools National Network and in lots of places, you'll start with a plan. You will work with a leadership team, you'll build a plan out, you'll have all the action steps, You'll have all the metrics, and then you roll that plan out to the stakeholders. I've been doing that a little differently, and I'm finding that it's really powerful to create design teams that have the background knowledge, that have the vision and goals, and understand what the end game is, but you give them the power to do their own action planning. So I have district sustainability teams, departments, site design teams, even student design teams. I have one district that students are leading their entire sustainability plan, including setting the projects that align to the goals and determining the metrics and timeframes. And so it's a really interesting model. It doesn't come easy though, because there's some things you have to do. You have to make sure that there is commitment to those values and goals, that they're looking at this as a learner and leader. They understand how to design and research. There's this idea of we're a team, and they have the background knowledge and skills. So you build those up front, you set the overarching objectives, and then you turn them loose. And what I find is that when you share leadership in that way, it happens a lot quicker. You have more error probably, but you also have more things happening. So it's just an interesting way of looking at how leadership can happen at any level in a sustainability plan.
No, I gotta ask, what was that picture? Sorry, picture of the day.
Sorry, I'm just showing that you got to be all out there if you're part of a design team. This is Jody Green.
Oh, okay.
Jody Greenberger, an incredible principal here in Encinitas, and you can see she's a Greenberger. So
Got it. Thank you.
students get a goal, so they're gonna plaster her with ketchup and mustard after this. So one of the things though, before I turn those teams loose, is I make sure that they go through the pro planning tool, and I have more elaborate models of this, but you got to start with possibilities. You have to understand what's possible. Sometimes these teams don't even know what could happen, what could be done. And my favorite story of that is Roger Bannister, who was the first human being to break the 4-minute mile. Did it back in 1954. Before he broke the 4-minute mile, people thought it was an impossible thing we were never going to do that. He broke it. 46 days later, it was broken again. 3 months later, it was broken again. The next year, 3 guys broke it. Once it was broken and people knew it was possible, it happened. So people need to know what's possible. So you have to show models. You have to, give them a vision of what could be, and then you have to bring them back to the realities. They need to know what's happening right now, what they're working on, what are the, what's the budget, what's the time frame. The realities are matter and they're important. So possibilities, realities, and then somewhere at that intersection are the opportunities. This is part of what I give to teams before I turn them loose. And again, this is really all about setting up a culture. So you're building a culture, you're building a culture of change, you're building a culture of sustainability in many cases. And sometimes, it's like, well, wait a minute, can students do that? Do they really get what we're talking about with vision? Well, listen to one.
Too is we kind of saw that and we're like, all right, we're all have our own opinions. Someone's going to be like, we're this close away from solving the problem, and other people are going to be like, we'll be lucky if we get that in 300 years from now. But if we all keep saying to keep eliminating the plastics, but then we keep being like, oh, what'll one more hurt? What'll one more hurt? And after that, billions of people every day saying that, it's going to soon start adding. So if we kind of come at it at a more positive approach, we're going to be like, maybe this is possible. It may not be possible in my lifetime, but maybe I can pass it down for the generations to come. And that's why it's so important, which I think, to educate us, because we're, as much as everyone, but we're the next generation to come, and we're going to be educating the ones before us and after. So we want to really solve this problem, and no matter how long it may take, we do believe that it can be solved.
So I love that. So, and then I also make sure that our teams understand this, that plans don't have to be complicated. This was the first plan in Encinitas. Let's do something, let's succeed, and then let's celebrate and move on to the second thing. So it doesn't have to be complicated. The next thing that leaders do is they cultivate these strong partnerships. And why? Because extra hands make it easier. good districts have lots of partners. They just do. As you find those professionals out there, you find people to help. I'm not going to talk about this, but we do lots of things with higher ed. One of them, well, I will tell just briefly that we work with all of the local colleges, but UCSD worked with us on a program where grad students were working with fifth graders on measuring what was happening in the pickup line in terms of air quality. And you can guess it wasn't good. And so that led to an anti-idling campaign that these fifth graders led at their school. And then that led to an anti-idling campaign throughout our district. So working with other partners has really tangible results. I'm going to talk more about Farm Lab a little bit later, but Farm Lab is our research and design center for students and staff. And it's also a 10-acre organic farm that feeds into our food service program. So why I bring this up here during partnerships is we have so many partners that work with us through Farm Lab. Because Farm Lab is in this really interesting area with lots of nonprofits, we formed the Encinitas Environmental Educational Collaborative, or the E3 Collaborative. All of these nonprofits are part of that collaborative. We work collaboratively together with all of them on certain things. We share parking, we talk about traffic mitigation, we share tools and resources, but then we also work individually. For instance, the YMCA has buses. We don't have buses. So they will bus kids to Farm Lab for us, bus them back to their school site, and then we let them use Farm Lab in the afternoons and the weekends for their programming. It's a quid pro quo. We both win, and we're great partners with them. So partnerships happen all over the place, but you need to actively be thinking about them and helping to make them go. And they don't always stay, by the way. We have partners that have come and gone. Two of those partners there used to help us with farming. They don't anymore, and that's okay. We have new farming partners now. Another thing that successful leaders do is build and promote that culture. This is all about culture change, everything I'm talking about. So what does that mean? Well, you bring parents into this. You know, these are parents at one of our schools that were tired of waiting 20 minutes to pick up their kids. So they met with us and said, we want to form some walking school buses. So we helped them. We worked with a local church. We've got parking 2 blocks away, and they structured it, set it up, and great way for parents to demonstrate some leadership. And then they staff it every morning. Lots of ways that parents can help. Don't forget your staff members, including your classified staff. We made the huge mistake of not bringing our custodians in when we started looking at our waste management plans and programs. And until we talked to the custodians, until we got the custodians to help lead this initiative, it wasn't going anywhere. The custodians made the difference. So work with your staff, listen to your staff. And if you're part of that staff and you have good ideas, bring them to your supervisor, because really they're the ones that run it. Kids can do this all the time. Here's first graders helping us to keep critters out of the garden. You know, this, we said, help us. We don't use pesticides. We don't do that kind of stuff. So they came up with some ways to maybe hopefully scare away the rabbits. And really little guys can do this too. These are kindergartners helping to staff a scrap cart and help with our recycling. We use energy teams on all of our campuses to help us reduce energy use. Here's a great example of bringing kids in. So we talked about Farm Lab. I threw out the challenge. We have some new spaces at Farm Lab. Are there any classes out there that want to help us design and outfit these classrooms? And we have a real budget, and we're going to work with you for 3 to 6 months, and you're going to do this job. And so we had a 4th grade and a 5th grade from one of our schools pick it up, and they had all this empty space, including that area between, to design. So they formed a design team. They met with the clients, us, and talked about what our needs were. They met with experts, not just from the local area, but they met with architects, designers. We had a designer from Washington, D.C. Come in, zoom in to talk to them. We had different people. We had purchasing agents. They needed to know all of this because they were going to be buying product and designing these classrooms. They measured, they did all the work. I told them, you're off by 3 inches and it's not going to work, and you will have blown your budget. So they were very accurate in the work that they did. They needed to know how to research. They needed to know how to design. And I'm not going to show you what they did. I'm going to have them tell you what they learned and what they did.
car formed to do research, making sure our resources were credible, accurate, and reliable. From there, we chose certain jobs, such as kitchen design, indoor storage, outdoor furniture, that we were passionate about designing and interested in researching. With further research, we developed budgets and thorough plans with measurements that match the blueprints. You can find all the links to the items we chose through our Excel spreadsheet, as well as the keynotes that match the blueprints, so you know where we want to place our items. We gave each room a theme to help in the development of the space. The Rosemary room is a logical and engineering, high technology room. The Dill room is our artistic development room, and the deck is designed to conserve water and be an outdoor learning and presentation space. I will start the presentation with discussing the design for the kitchen in the Dill or artistic room.
That presentation goes on for 30 minutes, by the way, and they get into the architectural designs and the blueprints, and they know their stuff. But here's what's more important. Teacher, just after the project, just pulled their phone out and said, "What'd you learn?"
I learned how to do a budget. I really didn't know what it was before. Well, I've heard about it, but yeah.
I learned that research is not just searching something up and finding your answers in the first article. It takes time and effort. Such a big project can take a while with just one person. And teamwork is more important.
The script was hard to write because there were a lot of prices that weren't correct, and it was a lot of work, and we needed to make everyone say something that really counted, and there were dimensions and keynotes and everything we needed to do, which was really hard.
Yeah. I learned that designing classrooms, I thought it would be super easy and super quick, but it actually takes a while, and you have to go through a lot of research and so many different steps to get there. I learned while doing this project that even if you don't get something the first time, you can just keep trying and you'll eventually get it and become the best person that you can be personally. Questions, but to be open to ask questions, because questions lead to success. I learned that all ideas are good ideas, and you just have to really go deeper into it to see if it's good or if you want something else.
I learned that you can't just go to the teacher and say, I want this, you have to know why.
That there are a lot of different websites that you can get things off. Like I thought Amazon, that's where you get everything. But then I realized there were a bunch of other places where there were really good furniture and even better than Amazon and really good prices and things like that. I learned that it's not just adults who can design things and make really cool things. Kids can do it too.
Who knew you couldn't get everything in Amazon, right? So I'm going to fly through some of these slides here, but just to show you how we actively go about setting that culture and working with others to do that. So we had partners that helped us with our yoga program. We believe strongly in a healthy food culture. So we have our farm to school program that we're hoping for 75% of our daily salad bar produce comes from our farm. I don't know where they are right now. The pandemic set them back a little bit. We don't just believe in planting things, we believe in eating them too. And so we teach kids about nutrition. We have nutrition labs in most of our schools where kids actually get a chance to harvest from the garden and then bring it in and do something meaningful with it in the kitchen. I'll share you one final thing related to some of the food stuff, which is another challenge to students. And again, student leadership is amazing. Students can do anything. So this is we called it the waste-free lunch learning quest, and started with that straw. I had a kindergarten class come to me and say, Dr. Baird, we need to stop having straws. They brought it to me and the board, so we immediately stopped using straws. But then we had a fifth grader that said, well, what about the rest of that stuff? And so I threw it back to them, which is, how do we get rid of that spork? I gave them, my parameters, which is I can't spend unlimited, but I needed to get rid of the spork. And I threw it out to not just kids, but also teachers, support staff. Give me some ideas, because I don't know what the answer is. So I'm not going to read through all of this. They came back with some of the usual things: use biodegradable stuff, do this. use celery as a spoon, use chopsticks, use breadsticks as chopsticks, then they can eat the breadsticks, you know, so lots of great ideas came from adults and kids. Here are my 3 favorites, or some of my favorites. You know, bring from home is great. I love this. Change the school hours. If we let everybody go home at 11:30, Dr. Baird, you don't have lunchtime, you have zero waste, problem solved. This is my 2nd favorite. Stop serving good tasting food. People will bring their lunch from home. They'll stop buying from the cafeteria and they'll take all their waste with them. The real answer was, and this came from students, but we were starting to think this as well, which is we need to go back. We need to go back to where we wash dishes. And so we now are implementing reusable silverware and plates. And we've got this now, I think, in 5 of our schools. So that came from students. Student leadership can bring about significant results. So, and I won't talk a lot about this, but where we learn also matters. And again, we have lots of support for our gardens from staff, from the district itself, from parents, from outside agencies that support these gardens, because our students, our staff, our community love our gardens. And so they're there all the time, and everybody helps to take care and use these gardens in ways that matter. So we love our gardens, we love our outdoor learning spaces. The last thing that we do as leaders is we communicate what the work is. You know, we communicate the successes, we communicate what this is all about. And when you start to think about this, so often we forget to tell people what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the successes we're seeing. So you have to, if you're talking about sustainability, you have to build that into your regular communications, not just the newsletter that goes out to parents either. There's everything, you know, staff, the community, your students, and it has to be regular and really in so many different ways. And you also communicate through your actions. You know, I tell this to leaders all the time, which is, yeah, you can say you believe in sustainability, but I've never seen you at the sustainability meeting. So I tried to go to every sustainability meeting. I was at every wellness committee. I was at every garden meeting because it was important. And people knew that that was what mattered. Whoops, I jumped off of that too quick. And then celebrate. You know, we used to do a lot of board presentations, a lot of write-ups. We now have sustainability showcases where students and staff put together their best work, and we come out and it's a festival, it's a fair, and the board comes, and it's not a board meeting, it's a celebration. So lots of different ways to celebrate. Part of my community. So just about to wrap up here, but I want to also tell you how, as we started using students more in shared leadership capacity to share the message, we realized they needed the tools to do that sharing, and they love to use video. So we just created a film guild for students, brought in experts, beefed up their skills, beefed up their equipment. Last time I checked, I think there was 250 to 300 students that voluntarily are members of Film Guild, spend all of their waking moments making great video. And here's an example of this. This is a video that was made with students doing it in conjunction with one of our partners, the local wastewater agency.
Oh my gosh, what did I do? Why am I here? Check. The investigator is on his way in. My name is Agent Bromley. Recently I've been seeing that you have been flushing wipes down the toilet. Why have you been doing this? Well, in the box of wipes it says flush fluoride on them, so The box lies! It clogs pipes and pollutes the ocean. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'm just doing what the box tells me to. We'll let you off with a warning, but be careful. We're watching. But before I go, let me tell you a little something. Don't flush wipes and diapers, paper towels too. 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 Don't flush that. It'll clog the pipes and pollute the ocean. Don't flush that. It'll clog the pipes and pollute the ocean. Don't flush that. It'll clog the pipes and pollute the ocean. Don't flush that. It'll clog the pipes and pollute the ocean. Check, check. Yeah, I got it. Remember, don't flush wipes and diapers. Paper towels too.
So you can see kids can do anything. Partners can help you with so much. Shared leadership is important. My granddaughter is beautiful. It's all good. And thank you for joining me this afternoon at the webinar. I'm going to stay on here. We'll stay on after 5 o'clock. I know Nate has a few closing slides and we'll go there. And then 5 to 5:30 will be some conversation time to discuss any and everything.
Great. Thanks so much, Tim. Just a round of applause, some emojis or some claps for Tim and the incredible work that he led in Encinitas and continues to share and inspire for leaders around the state and around the nation. Again, this webinar was part of a series of monthly meetings. Our next one is March 16th, and it'll feature the good work taking place in Val Verde Unified School District under the leadership of Doug Henderson, who I see on the call today, and how he's been able to lead some STEM and STEAM work in the garden spaces in his district. So there's lots of conversations about outdoor spaces, outdoor learning, gardens, schoolyards, forests, and we will hear the story from Val Verde next month. So please do register. Amy's going to share in the chat a link to a feedback form that we would like you to fill out before you jump off this call. So if you're still here, please do take a moment and catch that link and provide us with some feedback from this session. I checked on the Jamboard. It looked like I had some trouble opening it. I don't know if other people had trouble opening the Jamboard as well. But what we'd like to do now is just offer an opportunity for some extended conversation. So it is 5 o'clock, a little past 5. If you have other obligations, this is kind of the formal end to the webinar itself. Do fill out that feedback. But